Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are going to do a grade 9 lesson. This is lesson number 1. The topic that we are going to focus on today is equation of a line, right? Now, before I get into it, there's just some general things that you need to know, which is the general equation of a line. And the general equation of a line is y equal mx plus c, right? Where m, which is this m, the coefficient of x, is the gradient of the line. What do I mean by the gradient of the line? I mean the slope of the line, how the line slopes, alright? And c is the y-intercept of the line. What do I mean by this? The y-intercept of the line is where the line touches the touches the y-axis or pass through the y-axis. For example, here on the board we have a line, right? We say that this line is a straight line, and this line will take the equation y equal mx plus c. Now c is this point right here on the y-axis. The point where the line passes through the y-axis or touches that point. Because it's not every day you will have a line that actually passes through, right? At this point, one key factor is that x is always, the x coordinate is always 0. So the coordinate for the y-intercept is always 0, comma, c. Because you write coordinate in the form x, comma, y. It's always the form when we're using the Cartesian plane. So the first term is the x term, second term is the y term. Alright? Now, our objective for today is to identify or state the gradient of an equation and the y-intercept value, and also the coordinate of the y-intercept given a specific equation. And we're going to look at an example. Now, here we have an example. Find the gradient and the y-intercept point of A. Y equal negative 3x plus n, right? Now, before I find that, there is something that you need to understand. When a line slopes upwards in this direction, that line is said to have a positive slope. When the line slopes in this direction, that line is said to have a negative slope or a negative gradient. Now, for the first example, which is part A, it is pretty straightforward because, let's look at it. Because part A, now they give us y equal negative 3x plus 4. It is already in the general form, so all we need to do is to just look on the equation and identify where the gradient is and where c is. So from this equation, m is equal to negative 3. Where do I get that negative 3? It is the coefficient in front of the x term. That's what m is equal to. And y, the y-intercept value, is the constant in the equation, which is 4. Now we can go further to write the coordinate of the y-intercept value. And like I said, the x coordinate is always 0, so therefore the coordinates of the y-intercept is 0, 4. I'm going to put it in a bracket. And that's it there. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward, right? Now we're going to look at the solution. We're going to look at the solution for part B and part A. Now part B is slightly different. The equation is 2y equal x minus 8. Now whenever we have an equation looking like this, that is not in the form of y equal mx plus c, and this is the form y equal mx plus c, our objective is to rewrite this given equation in the form y equal mx plus c. Now in the general form, we notice that the y coefficient is 1. So in this equation, we need the y coefficient to be 1 to get it into the general form. So in order to do that, this is 2y. 2y means 2 multiplied by y. Now in order to get rid of this 2 that is being multiplied by y, we have to do the opposite, which is to divide by 2. So if I divide this side by 2, because it's an equation and we need to keep it balanced, whatever we do to one side, we should always do it to the next side. So because we divide this side by 2, we also have to divide this side by 2. Now, as you can see, 2 will cancel out 2, leave us with y equal x minus 8 all divided by 2. Now this means that all of the numerator, which is x minus 8, is divided by 2, which means that we can rewrite this side, separate it. So we can do it by saying that y is equal to x over 2 minus 8 over 2, which is the same thing as this before. Now we can even go further to simplify this by saying that y is equal to x over 2 is the same thing as x by itself being 1x. So this is the same thing as saying half or 1/2 x minus 8 divided by 2 gives us 4. Now we would have done our job by rewriting the given equation in the form y equal half x, in the form y equal mx plus c, where we can clearly see the coefficient of the x term is 1/2 and the constant here is -4. So therefore m is equal to, so we can go ahead and answer the question because they asked us to find the gradient and the y-intercept. So the gradient, which is m, is equal to 1/2, and the value of the y-intercept, so the y-intercept is equal to -4. So whichever sign is in front of the constant, the 4 takes that sign. So because it is -4, so our answer is -4. And we can just simply state, this part of the question didn't ask us to state the coordinate of the y-intercept, but for additional practice, we can just simply state the coordinate for the y-intercept. And the coordinate for the y-intercept is 0, 4. And we would have completed our question. Now, moving on to part C. Now, part C, the equation is given was 3x plus 2y equal 8. Right? 3x plus 2y equal 8. Now this equation is not in the general form, which is y equal mx plus c. So what should we do? Again, our objective is to rewrite this equation in the form y equal mx plus c. Now, on the left hand side, we notice that we have 3x plus 2y. On the right hand side, we have the constant a, which means that we don't want this 3x on the left hand side. We want it on the right hand side. Now, because this is a positive 3x, in order to get it on the other side, we need to subtract 3x, right? So you do it, you write back what you have first. So I'm going to write back my 3x plus 2y. I'm going to leave a little space, put back my equal sign, and put back my 8. Now, I want to get rid of this 3x. So the opposite of plus 3x is to subtract 3x. But remember again, it's an equation, so whatever we do to one side, we have to do it to the other side. So we have to subtract 3x on this side as well. Now, positive 3x minus 3x give us 0. Leave us back with just positive 2y. Equals 8 minus 3x. Now, we're left back with 2y equal to 8 minus 3x. But no, in the general form, the coefficient of y is always 1. So, again, we are going to divide both sides by 2. So, divide this side by 2 and divide this side by 2. Now, when we divide, 2 cancel out 2. So, we left back with y equal. Now, we learned that we can split this side. So, I'm just going to go ahead and split it. We learned that this is the same thing as 8 divided by 4 minus 3x all divided by 2. Now, you can simplify. Y is equal to 8 divided by 2 is equal to 4 minus 3 over 2x. Right? So we can write it like that. Now, the general form, in the general form, note that we have mx coming first, then the constant. So we can rearrange this side of the equation to get it exactly looking like the general form, which is y equal mx plus c. So we're going to say that y is equal to, we're going to move all of this term here with the sign in front of it and put it first. So we're going to say that y equals negative 3 over 2x, and because positive 4 means plus 4, so this is plus 4. Now we have the equation in the general form. We can just simply go ahead and state the value of the gradient and state the value of the y-intercept. So m is equal to the coefficient of the x term, and the coefficient of the x term is that number there that is multiplying the x, and that is minus 3 over 2. So that's the gradient. This line have a slope of minus 3 over 2, and the y-intercept is just positive 4, and we can just write 4. And again, we can just go ahead for the fun of it to state the coordinate of the y-intercept, which is just 0, 4. And that's the coordinate of the y-intercept. So if you were asked to sketch this graph, the graph would put the y-axis at 0, 4. It will have a a negative slope, that means it will slope in this direction, and the gradient of that slope will be negative 3 over 2. Alright? Thank you for watching. I hope that you would have enjoyed this lesson, and please remember to subscribe. Thank you.